is Emma Hopkins. I'm the VP of Events here at the Real Estate Student Association at the University of Calgary under the Westman Center of Real Estate. You are listening to the RESA Student Podcast.
Today, I'm joined by Joey Stensland, our VP of Mentorship.
Hello. It is great to be here today.
Together, we have the pleasure of being joined by Birol Fisekci, the President and CEO of Bordeaux Developments. Birol, thanks so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for your time.
Bordeaux Developments would be most known for their Harmony development, which is a community that's currently being built just outside of Calgary. So if any of you students are familiar with the Mickelson Golf Course, that is located at this community. But before we jump into talking about Harmony, if Birol, you could just give us a very high-level overview of your past experience and how you got to where you are today in the industry.
Of course. So I'm a U of C graduate as well with the BCom at the University of Calgary, so love the program there. Graduated 91, 92, I guess. And after that, I went for a 3-week holiday to Turkey. That's my background. I have a blended background, and I wanted to kind of just discover it, if you will, and coincidentally did the classic cliche, fell in love and got a job offer. That's what kept me in Turkey for 10 years. And about 2001, I returned back to Calgary. I had always been involved in land development, both in Turkey and obviously now here in Calgary. And my love for the industry, which goes into housing, comes from my childhood. My mom's an interior designer, and we always worked on our own houses and were just always demoing something and rebuilding something else. So I just love the industry.
So, Birol, please tell us about your path to starting Bordeaux Developments. Why did you decide to start a residential real estate development company?
It was actually started by a gentleman called Bill Pringle. So he was formerly with Brookfield Properties, and he had also left in, I think it was 2000. And that was about the time where I was starting to get an itch to come back to Calgary. I missed it deeply. I love the city. And I was actually in touch with one of my professors from U of C, a lady by the name of Donna Farrar-Kerr. And she commented that I had to meet Bill Pringle. We would hit it off. We're yin and yang. We're polar opposites, but they would complement that skill set would complement each other. And I trusted her and I took her word for it. So I flew back to Calgary to meet Bill. And sure enough, we are yin and yang, but we also complement each other very well. And, one of the things we talked about at the very beginning, the main driver to starting a development company was that we both believed, our industry was missing a very important element to what we're trying to create. And it's a focus of, I think we've lost sight a little bit of the focus of people. Why do we build homes and why do we build communities that we build? We're certainly, as a country, way past this notion of shelter. We have to focus on what we're doing. We just felt there's a better way to create community and truly live up to what that word means.
So how that works when you were in Turkey, you kept ties in Canada, in Calgary, because you knew you wanted to get back to Calgary or Canada for that matter, and start a business and continue a career in Canada. How did that work? Was there an exit plan?
There really wasn't. I guess that would tie back to some of the advice I would always give anyone who's starting their career is, spread your wings as wide as you can, but also remember where home is. You never know when you'll have to get back to or want to get back there. So the reason I wanted to come back is I had married in Turkey, and we were talking about starting a family. And, I have lots of great things to say about Turkey as a country, but Istanbul as a city, I say it's the perfect blend between Paris and New York. It is not the place to raise a young child, in my view. So as we started to talk about having children, I knew the place I needed to be was Calgary. And that was the impetus that brought me or started me to look for a job back here in Calgary.
So assuming back when you did move back, the market was doing a lot better than Calgary might be doing today. So if you could go back to that stage where you're trying to figure out where to work, if you were a student now, would you still choose to settle down in Calgary despite our economic climate?
Absolutely. We're all in this together. Every city, every country has its ups and downs, and not to get too corny or philosophical, but your highs are augmented by your lows, and you start to appreciate both of them. They build on one another. The people we are today come from the challenges we've had in the past. So, Calgary, it feels tough right now, and it is tough for sure. And it'll only get better if we kind of all pull in the same direction. There's lots to be accomplished here. So yeah, no regrets at all.
That's very comforting to hear on my end, because personally I'm going into commercial brokerage, which is definitely one of the more like struggling sides of the industry. And there's a lot of ups and downs, but the advice I keep getting from industry professionals over and over again is that Calgary is always in that cycle. So it may be down now, which provides the best learning opportunity for me being young when I don't have to support a family. I get to learn in this down market and then take all that experience to a better market.
But what you also get is you're at the front end of, I think something that's very exciting. You've got millions of square feet of unleased space right now, and you get to be part of a team that figures out how to deploy that, like how to innovate and create something that's special. And like if I was your age, I would be like, wow, this is neat. This is the opportunity, because that's what life is about. It's got to have fun with it.
Many challenges also means many opportunities. I agree. And how do you encourage innovative ideas within your team to the next generation that is going into real estate? How do you encourage creativity and that innovation, especially in Calgary?
Yeah, in my view, two important things. One is the art of listening. It's we often hear. I'm not convinced we listen very well. That's the first step. And the second step would be, I'm a big believer, and it's a philosophy that was well rooted in Harmony when we were doing the early planning, was, it's the more great minds there are, the more great ideas there will be. So we wanted to surround ourselves with as many stakeholders as we could when we were planning out the community. And I think that's where innovation comes from, is talk to everybody. Because it's, ironically, I'm not convinced that innovation is that easy when you're entrenched in your day-to-day work, because you're so familiar with it, you're almost too close to the topic. Innovation comes when you talk to others that are on the fringe or outside your business or topic of nature, whatever the topic is you're thinking about. And as you just explore different ideas, all of a sudden just different switches trigger in your mind, and that's where innovation will come from. Like, I'll give you a couple of simple examples for Harmony, which I think are kind of cute. We did surround ourselves with, obviously, subject matter experts, whether it's General Electric, whether it's psychologists who would work with seniors, whether it's the RCMP on building safe principles for building communities, planners, engineers, that's low-hanging fruit. But we also worked with the U of C students, graduate students we brought in for some brainstorming sessions to critique us, to actually pick our plan apart, because they had their ideas and their perspective. The lens they were looking at our challenge was completely different than what we were looking at it. We had, and we still have, every year I host events for elementary kids. And I love that event, because in its rawest form, you're getting an idea of what a very young child looks to for a community. So they talk about enjoyment and play and sport. But nestled in those words are items of security, safety, walkability. So it's really kind of interesting to talk to as many people as possible would be a big word of encouragement for innovation.
And in the perspective of a university student, that's why coffee chats with professionals in the industry, or even just taking the time to chat with other students, not even necessarily in your own business school, outside of different faculties. I believe that nothing happens until you show up and have a conversation and meet with somebody. Yeah. And generate ideas that way.
Yeah, we'll often, I'll step off the curb, but by definition, innovation is something that's completely new. So by definition, people are a little bit hesitant to suggest something because of the fear of not fitting in, or fear of it sounding really stupid, or getting laughed at, or thinking that the boss will think that they're a little bit stupid. So people are actually scared to step off the curb. So whenever we talk about brainstorming sessions around my shop, heck, I'll step off the curb with a really dumb idea, because you can build on that. It lets down everybody's guard. If you're willing to be a little bit foolish and just set that bar so low, it's pretty easy to come up with a better idea. That's you have to disarm. When you're in group settings, you really have to disarm the group to kind of disengage any sort of stigma around simply being wrong, because there is nothing about when it comes to innovation, you simply can't be wrong. There is no idea that's a bad idea because it's new.
I'm really curious. And I think this is really important, especially in our generation. Attention span is very minimal these days. I find with our generation, with technology, cell phones, it's everywhere. Where are we going wrong with our listening skills these days?
So at the risk of sounding old, which I guess I am getting there, I think you hit the nail on the head. It is a skill to put down the tools and focus on one item. So in our case, we won't allow cell phones into some of our meetings, because it is so easy, and that's why I hate Zoom calls and conference calls, or I certainly hate when people turn off their camera, because darn well they're doing something else. And there hasn't been a meeting on Zoom that I've been on where when the camera's off, one of the individuals always gets caught with, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that point. Can you rephrase that, please? Or could you ask that again?" They're distracted. So it is a discipline to actually stay engaged. It is an effort to stay engaged with the conversation. And and it's not only your generation, all of us are guilty of this.
I think a big part of that, attention span and listening, helps people build relationships as well, and brings a lot of people together. And I think that's a very interesting point to touch on with your Harmony development, is you have so many amazing, very innovative projects and partners on the project. So can you discuss that a little bit and how you were able to form those relationships?
Yeah, of course. And I'd like to think it's always ongoing in Harmony's example. What we've tried to do is for each element. So if I was to back up a little bit with Harmony, one of the things, the underlying vision for Harmony is to focus on the individuals and the families that live in Harmony, and the guests and visitors that will come to Harmony. What experience are they going to have in the community? And this was really important to us. I think as an industry, one of the things we've been missing is that we put infrastructure in the ground like no tomorrow. We're great at roads, we're great at pipe in the ground, we're great at building houses. But I'm not convinced we stop and ask ourselves, what happens after we're done? What's the interaction at the street level? How are our neighbors communicating with one another? What sort of things are we leaving behind? So with Harmony, when we first started the planning, I'd mentioned psychologists earlier. I surround myself with two, one psychologist, one sociologist, to get an idea of what are the expectations of, individuals who would want their own personal time for their own mental well-being, for breaks, I would call them, and what are the expectations for families and the interactions with others within the community. So we try to create a community around building a safe and happy environment for individuals and families that just have a sense of belonging. So I'm hoping my industry, my biggest fear is that a lot of the mental well-being that we talk about, and therefore the flip side, mental illness that we talk about, I believe that it's in part caused by the communities we are creating. We're not creating great places, great experiences for people to feel safe and regenerate themselves in. So I think we need to pivot a little bit as far as community development and home construction in that sense. So our efforts in Harmony was to make sure that every experience that we have or that the people have who live in Harmony is a special experience. And the only way we could do that is by creating these fantastic partnerships with people that actually know what they're doing for a specific skill set. So in the case of golf, we knew we wanted a golf course. It played a pivotal point for Harmony's amenity offering. But no one in our group knows anything about building or operating a golf course. So we partnered with Windmill Golf Group, Nicholson National, and created what's hopefully going to be one of the best courses in Canada. I think if you're in the golf world, they're already calling it one of the best in Canada. So we're quite proud of that. Another example would be our relationship with Groupe Nordique out of Quebec. They're bringing to Harmony a world-class spa experience for both Harmony homeowners as well as visitors from the Calgary region. Those two examples are great examples of partnerships for our amenities. But let me talk about our relationship with Corex and before Corex, General Electric on the planning stage of our water and wastewater treatment facilities. In Harmony, we have one of the most advanced water and wastewater treatment facilities in North America. We did that intentionally. We did that with the hope that we would work with the province of Alberta and drive policy change for our water resources. So our potable water obviously comes from the Bow River, but in Alberta, all we do with our wastewater is we do some irrigation or we release it back to the river system, which is important, but there's other opportunities there as well. And we think secondary use is a real, tangible and viable alternative that we should all be thinking about. And we've put that infrastructure in to accommodate that.
In university, we all have such an emphasis on making connections within the industry and meeting people. So when you talk about all those partnerships that you've created over time, are those through a mutual network, or do you just find people you want to partner with and reach out on your own? Or how would you recommend to students to start building their own network?
Well, I think students in general, you guys are masters at developing networks. So that's a good thing. For myself, my focus has always been on the fact I love people. I love talking to people from different backgrounds. So it's always interesting for me to when you get a suggestion of, someone will say, you should really talk to so-and-so about skateboard parts. As we have in Harmony. That's really interesting for me. So I'll reach out to that person, and through conversation, you'll actually, as you explore conversation, you will find, 5 other people you need to talk to about different ideas that have been generated from that. We've gone from, when I think of Harmony's Lake, which also is one of the deepest man-made lakes in Alberta. It is, I call it a glorified swimming pool. We have a shallow treatment system, a deep water treatment system. So it's an amenity as well as our reservoir. It's led to conversations with fish experts on, well, how do we have fish in the lake, which is also fun for fishing and sport, but it also has a a very purposeful use to having fish in the water. And as you learn more and talk to more people, you'll end up discovering other people that you want to speak to as well. That makes sense? That was a mouthful, sorry.
That sounds great.
Now, in real estate developments, there's so many variables that come into play. Birol, now, as you chief in command, what does it take to stay on top of it all? To always be informed, learning about new technology, sustainability, and what does it take to be prepared for anything if and when it goes wrong in development?
Yeah, build your team that loves to do the same. So, I hate to use the word go up the ladder, but as your role becomes more senior in an organization, you'll want to make sure the team that you work with is senior in their specific topic matter, because they're your point of contact and point of entry to get information. So your information starts to become only as good as the people that are giving you that information. And we've talked a little bit earlier about innovation. That's why I love having people around me that are creative, and they're not shy to be creative. Now, they'll know when to let go of an idea. That's also really, really valuable. I've worked with some people in the past that simply won't let go. And sometimes you realize when you're part of a team, you got to pick your battles. But for me, it's important if I want to, keep getting fed very valuable information, it's only going to come from team members that enjoy finding new ideas, thinking of different ways to approach problems. And I'm quite proud to say I have that with my team. And I also have that with our partners. We partner with a great company in Qualico, and I see it over there as well.
And recruiting that tremendous team, how did you discover the creativity in your team members? First bringing them on, and maybe an interview process or meeting them for the first time. I assume a lot of it is personality.
Absolutely. Well, sorry, I'm not sure. I was about to say absolutely, but I'll give you one example without giving any names in a bit. But it is through the interview process, because your resume speaks volumes. I think I have yet to see. I rarely see a poorly written resume. It explains the black and white of who the individual is. But when you actually get into a meeting, that's where, for me, I'm able to discover, are they truly interested in innovation? Are they truly interested in exploration and or being the best at whatever their task is? I have one individual with our company, when we were doing the interview, as you probably picked up, I'm a fairly outgoing individual, and I definitely love people. She's very quiet and very timid. And we were doing a joint interview with another senior person from my company, and he said to me after, he goes, "Well, I guess that didn't go well for you. She was pretty quiet, wasn't she?" And I said, "No, just the opposite. You could tell she was well thought through. She thought her questions. She also challenged herself. She said something that was quite interesting to me. She said, one of the things that I'm starting to do is stand-up comedy, and I find it really uncomfortable and awkward, but it's kind of fun and quirky at the same time. And I think my dryness is making people laugh." And I loved it. Like, who does that? If you're an introvert, who actually goes out on stage and does stand-up comedy? So it was brilliant. It was probably the key reason why we hired her, and no regret. She's fantastic, actually.
It's bravery too, to get out of your comfort zone in that way.
I don't know if I would do that.
Get out of your comfort zone. Maybe that's when the best things happen. too?
Absolutely.
It's interesting for you to say that there is a place in your company for that introvert who has all the background knowledge, because we get drilled with the mentality that you have to be a certain way, your personality type, going into the business world, like all of us getting business degrees, that you have to be super outgoing, you have to do the right things. But I think there is something to be said about that variety. And especially in commercial real estate, it seems to be pretty streamlined. Everyone's kind of the same in one way or the other. So would you say there is a personality trait or something that you really admire when you first meet people that you might think lack in the industry or students could work on?
Authenticity. I know that word has sadly been overused so much, but truly that is the most valuable trait that anyone who's in front of me can portray. Show me who you really are. Show me your vulnerabilities. Show me your strengths, because we all have them. And I think we're so caught up in and fearful for people to understand where we're vulnerable. It's a real miss.
I'm gonna go back a little bit because I have no doubt this has built your credibility, Birol. But your experience, it was 10 years in Turkey.
Yeah.
In real estate development.
Yes.
So what were the most important lessons about business that you learned in Europe, in Turkey, that you probably would not have learned in Canada?
Yeah, that's a great question. How different business is. And what was really interesting, and I was, because I was the front end of my career, it was hardly that I was in a senior position. I eventually got there. But one of the things that I was most shocked with is, cultural norms on how business is conducted from country to country is it's very different, and it's not appropriate in my view for as Canadians for us to impose our kind of values and ethics in other countries, because it's different. And that was probably my biggest learning, how business is conducted. I know that's really cryptic, and I apologize for that. But I also want to be cautious that we're also working with young minds. So it's, that's a great question.
Different? How different? Different in what ways?
Well, so relationships are very, very important in Turkey. I noticed that from the get-go, which I found fascinating, where it was less about, they would never, for any of the tendering and bidding that I saw, that I was witness to, it was not about, what did the paperwork look like? It's who's across the table from you, what's the relationship, and what are they delivering, period. So it wasn't cut so black and white, and I know that that's a little different here, for sure. And I'm still struggling with, I'm not sure which is better.
So there's a big emphasis on trust then.
Huge emphasis on trust there.
Whereas North America is it more technical, legal paperwork?
Yeah, a lot. So very interesting. I don't, to my recollection, I don't think I ever saw any approach where the court system was involved. Probably because it's so broken. Might have been one of the reasons in Turkey. But when I look in Canada, that's the first step. So to your point on, is it technical? Is it driven by paperwork? Our business it's driven a little bit by fear and a lot by paperwork, which is quite sad.
So when you say conforming to those norms, did you find yourself doing that at all? Like putting one hat when you were living over in Turkey doing business there and then putting on another hat when you're here?
As I said earlier, I still struggle with what's right, which path is the right path. I didn't struggle because I simply wasn't there long enough. And obviously one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to Canada was, there's some challenges, let me step off the curb and be blunt. Bribery is quite rampant in Turkey that I saw. And that doesn't work for me. Like it's not part of my value system. And I didn't want to get, further entrenched with that way of life for business. And in that sense, being back here in Canada was exceptionally refreshing.
So you've given so many pieces of great advice throughout this entire conversation, but wrapping it up a little bit here, if there's one piece of advice you could give to a student who's looking to pursue a career down the development path, what would you say to them?
It's going to sound, and maybe we'll have to drill down into a little bit, motherhood apple pie statement, but really enjoy what you're doing and believe in what you're doing is making a difference. Even if it's as simple as being at the front end of your career and learning from what's around you, you'll distinguish very quickly right from wrong, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. And if you match that with just being your authentic self, you'll go a long way in our industry.
This is going to be my last question. I think it's a very important question because my classmates, friends in Calgary don't realize it. It's a big world out there. There's so much. Calgary is just peanuts to the rest of the world. Birol, would you recommend students to work somewhere else, whether it's in Canada or international, and just gain a lot of wisdom first? Bring it back to Calgary and fix those challenges with international experience then, or is Calgary the place to establish one's career?
For any industry, any career, my view is always expand your wings. It expands your network. It expands your mind, your state of mind, your frame set, what you think, how you think. Let's face it, we need to think more globally anyway. We talked about innovation. Alberta's at the very front end of that. We need to innovate. Particularly in Calgary, we have amazing engineers, amazing graduate students that we need to figure out what we're going to do with everyone and keep this city thriving. Our oil and gas sector, I hope, will still be a cornerstone for many years to come, and I fully expect it will be a cornerstone for many years to come. But I think we need to leverage that cornerstone better. So that's something as Calgarians and Albertans we need to figure out with the rest of this country. We need to sing a stronger message about what our contributions to this great country. But yes, spread your wings, go as far as you can to as many places as you can. But and that being said, I wouldn't go a mile wide, an inch deep either. Like, it's not a matter of just seeing different places. If that's all you have, that's fine. But actually try to understand the culture and the setting and the people. So I see myself as a Canadian. I didn't understand Turkey. I saw lots of things that I loved. I saw lots of things that I knew I couldn't be part of or wouldn't want to be part of as I got older. So Calgary is a fantastic city to come back to.
So for all you students freaking out that you can't find a job here, what the future in Calgary looks like, time and time again, we've been hearing from industry professionals that this is a great place to be, but there still is an emphasis on travel and learning about other markets. So to wrap it all up, thank you so much, Birol, for letting us speak with you and ask you all these questions. The advice you provided has been absolutely incredible, and I can't wait for students to hear this episode.
Thank you. I compliment both of you. You guys, I'm constantly amazed, as I was when you came out to Harmony, just how strong students of today are. You guys are our hope. I love it. I love the energy level. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe to the Real Estate Student Podcast and share with your friends.